5 ways people speak and understand emotional love. There's, those 5 love languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, physical or meaningful touch, and quality time. And so, out of these 5 love languages, you may have a primary love language, and you can see what your love language is by taking the test or even observing your own behavior. There are certain ways that you like to express your love towards other people. Some of you might be an acts of service type person, so you like doing stuff. You're always asking, what can I do for you? How can I serve you today? Can I wash dishes for you? Can I clean your house? Can I wash your car? Can I take you to the store? You might be that type of person that likes to express love and consequently love to receive love in that same way. If you're words of affirmation, you like people saying nice and kind things to you. You like notes coming to you. You like cards, or you might be that person that has this folder that got cards that you got way back in 1995. If words of affirmation is the way you like to receive love. And so as I'm kind of understand the love languages and words of affirmation and quality time and so on and so forth, I realized that it opened my eyes to my relationship with my dad. Because I didn't, as a kid, understand how he chose to receive love. And I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. Why would my dad always say to me, if you loved your mama, you'll mow the yard. If you loved your mama, you'll clean up around the house. If you loved your mama, you wouldn't leave your room like this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I love my mother. Have you seen me laying up under my mama? Have you seen me always hugged up on her? Have you seen me always kissing my mama on the cheek? Because my love language is meaningful touch or physical touch. So I chose to express how I love based on that. And I like to receive love that way. But see, my dad was acts of service, right? And so if you weren't doing anything, you were not expressing real love. And that is why he continued to say to me, well, if you love your mama, you'll do this and you'll do that. And as I understood the 5 love languages, it made sense that if I was going to love my dad effectively, I needed to love him based on his love language. So I need to come home, even though I don't live there anymore, and take out the trash on my way out, because that'll communicate to my dad that I love him. See what I'm saying? But see, the thing is that as we're understanding our love languages, moreover, we need to understand what it is that God requires of us so that we can love him back properly. And see, the thing is, because if we choose to love God in ways that God is not requiring of us, then we've missed showing him love. We've missed the opportunity to give God what he's requiring you if we're offering a whole bunch of things that he doesn't require. And so it behooves us to understand what it is that God requires of us so that as we enter this new year, that we're not doing things that are a waste of our time. Isn't it sad? Wouldn't it be sad that you spend this whole year with these New Year's resolutions and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but none of those things pleases the Lord? Oh, yeah, man. It'll be a waste of your time, the Lord. Nevertheless, in this present time of Micah, the kings, regardless of the king, the nation was living in a time of prosperity, but yet they were spiritually bankrupt at the time. What does that mean? That means that even though they did well financially, they had a good trade going on, they had all of this wealth, they were still not following the ways of the Lord. In fact, Micah would often speak out about their social injustice, where you had people who woke up early in the morning just trying to figure out how they can deceive and screw somebody over for the day. So much so that men would go to poor men who had inherited a specific land from their fathers, because this man was poor and may have owed him a debt, would take the land that was inherited by him for the person who had more wealth. And so he would do this, even though we know that in Judges, when in Joshua, when God helped the nation of Israel conquer all this land, each man was entitled to their own piece of land that God had given them to inherit. So it wasn't nobody's land to take from them, but the Lord, because it belonged to God, because he gave it to them in the first place. And so they're living in this time that they're spiritually bankrupt, that even the people who do trades will use instruments that will weigh whatever they're trading more or less to get over on them. And so whatever benefits them as the buyer or the seller, they would use these instruments to continue to cheat people, not to mention that they would live lives of coveting, not appreciating what God gave them, but wanting what everybody else had. And so they treated their poor wickedly. They treated them unkindly. And so God is unhappy with this. And we see this in chapter 6 where God is angry at the earlier part. God is saying, have I not kept my end of the bargain of our covenant? Have I not done all that I said I would do? Have I not loved you the way that I said I would love you? Who brought you out of Egypt? Who is that who delivered you from the hand and the punishment and the burden of Egypt and Pharaoh? Who was it that got you out of Egypt? Who was it that saved you from slavery? It was me. Who was it that when you needed to inherit this land and you could not go by yourself, who was it that sent his angels before you so that you could be prosperous and receive this new land that I promised to your forefathers, even though you broke the covenant from the jump? Who was it that when King Balak sent Balaam to speak ill against you and curse your kingdom and curse your land and curse your people, that I had him speak blessings to you, even though someone else meant to curse you? God is laying out his resume, and he's laying his faithful love to the people of Israel, and yet you choose to act like this, even though I've loved you in such a scandalous and incredible way. So God has brought down his indictment on the people. And as I'm thinking about this, I'm looking at 2016, and I wonder if God is saying some similar things to us. And I wonder if God will say what he's saying to his people today as we live 2017. 2016, I brought you out of some situations. I blessed you financially. I blessed you maritally. I blessed you in your relationships. I kept you even when people spoke ill against you. They tried to get you fired. They lied on you. But yet I kept you in the midst of all of that. And so what do you give me in return? And so we see in chapter 6, beginning at verse 6, we see them asking a question. Because they see that God is not happy with them. They see that God has brought down this indictment on them, saying that I've kept my end of the deal. I've loved you faithfully. What have you done for me? Why are you living like this? And so they ask the question in verse 6, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? What is it that I should bring to the Lord to appease you because you're unhappy with me? God, what is it that you desire from me that I can rectify these things and make right with our relationship? How can I reconcile with you? Should I bring burnt offerings to you? And for those who don't know, burnt offerings were voluntary sacrifices which were made when a worshiper wished to reestablish his relationship with God. And so offering multiple burnt offerings would suggest that you have really screwed up in your relationship with God. And so I'm bringing these voluntary offerings to appease you and to reconcile and restore and repair our relationship. And then he goes on, he says in verse 7, will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? And so now Micah is using these hyperboles, these exaggerations for effect to further communicate this, because even though he says this, these people are too poor to even afford 10,000s of rams and thousands of rivers of oil and so on and so forth. And so he goes on, he says, shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body, for the sin of my soul? Should I give my child as a sacrifice to please you, O God? And this right here is a clear indication that even though God has done all of these things for them, they still have no clue what the Lord wants. Because we see in Scripture in the Old Testament, God has, this is an abomination before the Lord for you to offer any human being as a sacrifice. And so here they are willing to offer all of these things, and none of these things will be pleasing to God. Their offerings and their rituals and their sacrifices does not mean anything to God because they're lacking something so significant. At the very core of this, these offerings are empty and superficial opportunities of devotion to the Lord. And we see this even more so in the New Testament, as the Pharisees had a similar issue, as they often found themselves being rebuked by Jesus, and Jesus saying woes to them because they offered all of this empty devotion towards God. See, they would wear all these nice fancy outfits, and they would make up all of these rules to the law, and they would put these heavy burdens on people because they made themselves seem so righteous and live such a life that nobody else could live up to their standard. And they kept all of these rituals and these purities and these cleanings and all of these other things, and they made it impossible for God to be a tangible, loving relation. We even see this evident in some passages of scripture, particularly in Luke, when there's this woman who had been bent over for 18 years, and she had this infirmity and this evil spirit on her, and so she had been bent over for 18 years. Jesus saw this woman on the Sabbath day and decided to heal her. And when Jesus healed her, the Pharisees, being indignant, stood up and said, there are 6 days for us to work. You come and be healed on one of those 6 days, but on the Sabbath, you keep it holy. And for us looking at this, we're trying to figure out, how is it wrong for you to do an act of kindness on the Sabbath? And even Jesus goes on to point out this hypocrisy, that they would take their oxen to water to get a drink, but yet you won't do something kind for somebody else. You mean to tell me that you have more value for an animal and a beast that does not bear the image of God? That you won't do something kind for someone who holds the very image of God himself, made in his image and his likeness? And see, so the Pharisees have missed something significant in the New Testament. The people of Israel have missed something significant in the Old Testament, and that is that God does not desire superficial devotion. God doesn't want that. Let me make that plain for us today. See, us coming to church regularly on Sunday mornings is not just enough for offer God what he requires from us. Yes, it's good that we come to church on Sundays, and yes, it's good that we attend regularly, and we go to our Wednesday night services and for Friendship Thursday night services and so on and so forth. But a lot of times we allow these things to become more like badges than an opportunity to show devotion, genuine, pure devotion to the Lord. You know, we like to wear our Sunday school badge, because I go to Sunday school. I don't know about the rest of y'all, right? We like to wear our badge that, you know, I only listen to gospel music. I don't let my radio get defiled by all that other junk and all that other foolishness. We like to wear these badges that I attend the Mothers Program and the Usher Board Program and the Choir Program and the Deaconess Program and the Deacons Program and the Men's Meeting and the Musical and the Christmas Program. I attend all of these church programs, and I do all of these things, but yet it's not what God requires. We just want to wear a badge. We just want people to think that we're holy, that we look like we're holy, that we're righteous, when really we're missing the mark. We're missing the mark. And I don't want to miss anybody in this room, because some of y'all might not tear the church doors down. But some of y'all cool with some of the things you're doing, and you think, oh, just because I say my prayers at night, that me and God in good standing. Just because I read the daily word or the daily scripture on the Bible app makes me in good standing with the Lord. And we think these empty, superficial devotions to the Lord is what he requires. And it would be foolish for us to have God been so faithful to us from 2016 and past that, and then to come into 2017 with superficial devotion to him. We can't offer anything empty to him anymore. God is deserving of something so much more and so much greater than that. And so we can't allow our badges to allow us to neglect the things that really matter. Don't get me wrong, these things are good. Coming to church is good. It's important for you to be at church. It's important for you to listen to things that don't defile you and don't encourage you to do bad things and produce bad behavior. That's important. But it's also important for other things to be done that have more weight in your relationship with the Lord.